everyone, it's Kris.
And I'm Wyatt and Elliott from Notebook Entertainment.
And you're watching an episode of Review This.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
It stinks.
Today we're talking about The Menu, which I loved. We're going to start off talking non-spoiler, just about the movie, the characters and stuff. We will let you know when we get to our spoiler section. And I'd like to start by saying that I know that technically this is a horror movie, but I personally, once I buy it and add it to my collection, I'm going to put it in dark comedy because it made me laugh.
It made me laugh a lot.
It made me laugh a lot. Like, it's not even really a thriller. It is definitely a dark comedy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I guess with the concept, it almost has to be, you know?
Exactly.
Just like The Hunt. You almost have to make it
a little bit of a comedy.
Bit of funny,
yeah. This is a super fun movie. It's got a great cast. Everybody did fantastic. If you like the idea of Hell's Kitchen mixed with movies like The Hunt or The Most Dangerous Game, you're gonna love this.
Yeah, for sure.
Chef Slowick, he even calls someone a donkey.
You donkey!
Just like Chef Ramsay does at one
in the
point.
theater, I was like nudging her. I was like, oh my god. Yeah.
This is
For
the
sure.
Leonardo DiCaprio meme.
Yeah, that was totally, yeah. It's clearly, I don't know, maybe because I'm just not fully a fan of all chefs, and I don't know them all, so Gordon Ramsay's the one that I really pay attention to, so it just, I said to her, I was like, I want to know what Gordon Ramsay thinks of this movie.
Right.
I would love to sit and watch
his
this
review.
with him.
I want Gordon Ramsay's review
I
of
want to
this
see
movie.
if he thought it was funny, did he think it was insulting?
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Yep. Well, this movie, it's not even really about the food. The food is a big part of it, but it's to get the point across. And this movie is very much about working class versus the entitlement class.
It's kind of an Eat the Rich movie. Let's
Kind
face
of,
it. Like,
yeah.
You know.
So the rich here are represented by basically pretentious assholes who either cheat, lie, or talk out of their ass while using their money and their societal connections to kind of never get in trouble or have any kind of accountability.
Yeah.
But also, because I believe that the lesson here is twofold. I think that the second lesson in this movie is to be careful about turning your passions into obsession. With our gig economy and with, everybody's got 5 jobs, because if we feel like if we're doing something, we have to be monetizing it. It can't just be because we like to draw, we like to write, we like to record movies. It all has to be for money, because that's the society that we currently live in. And so I think that this is a commentary on kind of like, revel in your passions. Don't turn them into this obsession for perfection. Don't turn them into, I've got to monetize it and make money and all that. Because that's Chef's character. He's very much consumed by his obsession for this perfection in his craft. It
is funny because as I've gotten older and everything, and I've told my friends this, if you want to see me, if you want to hang out, you kind of almost have to come to set.
Yep.
And you have to either partake or at least hang out on set or whatever, because if I'm going to do something that requires,
time,
leaving
effort,
the house, time,
money,
effort, everything,
energy.
it's going to go into our projects.
Right. All right. So here's our cast for The Menu. We'll start with Margot Mills, also known as Erin. We'll get into that. She's played by Anna Taylor-Joy, and she's a woman that has a mysterious background. So we kind of figure that out as the movie goes.
She's kind of us as the audience.
Exactly. She's very much like the normal person.
Yeah. Every movie, if you're going to introduce a fantastical world, you almost have to have that outsider in there to be the audience, to be like, what the fuck is going on?
We're with you, girl. We don't get it either.
Yeah. Right.
So then we've got Chef Julian Slowick, who's played by Ralph Fiennes, and he's the head of Hawthorne, which is an exclusive restaurant that's on an island. And he's like the best chef in the world.
He's basically Gordon Ramsay,
right?
Let's face it.
Or
yeah,
someone bigger. I don't know. We just know we love Hell's Kitchen. So so then we've got Tyler, who's played by Nicholas Hoult.
Steve-O!
He's a foodie fan of Chef Slowick. He's also a probable psychopath, because the whole time, like, until we figure out what's going on, like, the whole time I'm like, this dude's a psychopath.
He is, yeah. He's the one who buys into everything that the chef is
He is
pitching.
fanboy of the chef for sure, and he thinks he knows everything about food and all this stuff, and he's like, ooh, did I taste, this in there? And the chef's like, yeah, whatever, yeah, you did.
Right, yeah.
Like, he's one of those people.
Yeah.
And very rich, because he's the one who's paying for him and Margot to go, and it's like $1,200 a head at
Something
this restaurant
like that,
or something like that.
Yeah.
So then we've got my favorite character, Elsa, who's played by Hong Chau. She's the maitre d' or head waiter. She's basically like chef's right-hand woman. Like, she does everything that he needs done. And she takes care of the guests and all of that. Then we've got Lillian Bloom, who's played by Janet McTeer. Lillian is a food critic who helped make Julian famous. Her reviews helped, put him on the map. Then we've got Ted, who's played by Paul Adelstein. He's Lillian's editor, maybe her husband. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I know that he's her editor, though.
Yeah.
And he basically is just a yes man. He agrees with everything every pretentious thing she says. He's like, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. Then we've got George Diaz, who's played by the awesome John Leguizamo. I'm not even sure how to say it.
Leguizamo's what I've always been told.
Yeah.
So I just
remember it was Toulouse from Moulin Rouge. I loved him in that
I
movie.
remember John Leguizamo from way
Everything,
back. Like, okay,
dude.
so
Romeo and Juliet, like
in this movie, and this isn't a spoiler or anything, but I wanted to bring it up while I'm thinking about it. In this movie, he plays a movie star, kind of a has-been movie star, and he talks about, a lot of the people hate him. Like, they talk about his previous movies, and I kept thinking about, I don't know how many of you out there remember it, but he was in a movie in the 90s called The Pest.
Yo, what's up, freak?
That was pretty much universally hated. I feel like that's the movie they're referencing.
It was one of those, because we would go every Friday to Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, but mostly Blockbuster. And we just picked whatever the new movies were to watch. And so, yeah.
So did you like it, or is it?
I don't even remember, dude. I just know I've seen it. Because when people bring it up, I'm like, I've seen it.
Yeah.
But I was like 10? Like, I don't know.
Which is interesting. See, for a 10-year-old, it didn't leave it, it must have been that great. But that's why I feel like they're referencing him.
Yeah, because they're the big thing about him is he's got this one movie that I guess he did that he thought would put his career back on track or whatever, and it's like universally hated. So he's this washed up movie star, and he's there with his assistant Felicity, who's played by Amy Carrero. And she's basically done with him. Like, she's they're there, but she's there to basically be like, I quit. And also, I've been stealing money from you. And he's like, yeah, I know. But he's an ass to her, too. So, like...
they basically are just toxic.
They may have dated in the past, too.
I'm not
like,
sure.
I don't know. But she's his assistant. Then we've got Anne Liebrandt, who's played by Judith Light. And she's the rich wife of Richard Liebrandt, played by Reed Birney. And they've got a little weird something going on.
Yeah.
Because when he sees, we'll explain it, but when he sees Margot, it gets weird. Then we've got Bryce, Dave, and Soren, played by Rob Yang, Mark St. Clair, and Arturo Castro. And I'm probably going to be referring to them as the Tech Bros this whole time, because they're kind of a group. They go
really
together.
are, yeah. Like, I couldn't tell them apart, but...
Yeah, they're investment bros. Their boss owns the island that Hawthorne is on, so they basically feel entitled to be at this restaurant and treat staff and everybody any way they want, because their boss owns the restaurant. Then we've got... Catherine Keller, played by Christina Brucato, and she's a sous chef, and she's just as twisted as our head chef.
Wow.
I like her. I like her a lot. Then we've got Linda Slowick, who is played by Rebecca Kuhn, and that's Julian's alcoholic mother. So Chef Julian's alcoholic mother.
She's funny.
She
basically is a background character
the whole time.
But
she's great. All right, so... We've probably come as far as we can with no spoilers, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the spoiler warning now. Everything we talk about from now on will have full spoilers. So if you don't want to know, you want to wait to see the movie, stop now, come back after you've seen the movie. All right, so let's get into plot. All right, so Margot's on a deck waiting with Tyler, who we are left to assume is her boyfriend. They're about to head to Hawthorne, and he is, like, very serious about it. Like, she goes to light up a cigarette, and he's like, don't smoke. He's like, it's going to ruin your palate. You won't be able to taste anything. And she's like, well, it's my palate. What do you fucking care? Like, but he insists that she not smoke, and so she puts it out. And at first I'm like, girl, break up with him. But there's a reason that she listens to him, and we'll get into that. Yeah. But yeah, so they the Liebermans, or not Lieberman, Liebrants show up, and Margot kind of turns around, and you realize, oh, she knows him. She knows Richard. So on the boat, they get served some hors d'oeuvres, and it's like a clamshell with like mussel or I don't. It was gross. It was gross. I wouldn't have eaten it.
Right.
But
yeah.
Margot goes to eat it. It's like an oyster. It's got some kind of like gel stuff on it. I don't know. And Margot goes to eat it, and he slaps her hand away so he can take a picture.
Which you're not supposed to do, isn't that?
No, that's not till they get to the restaurant. Okay. They give him that rule.
Okay.
But on the boat, he's like, he's got to take the picture. Yeah. And then so they both eat it. And she's like, man, I would have preferred just the oyster and not all the little extra bullshit. And I'm like, girl, I wouldn't have even done that. Gross. Yeah. It's like eating snot.
But it did look like. But meanwhile, he's just all about it.
Like, ooh, it's so good. He's
savoring it. And...
Yeah, like, ugh. So Margot obviously thinks this is all ridiculous. But Tyler keeps making mention of how, like, he's so glad she's there with him, and she must have been the coolest girl in his school, and he never got to date the cool girl in his school. And I'm like, there's some serious red flags being thrown up here by this guy. Like,
right.
A lot of red flags. So on the island, everyone, on the boat, we also get to meet George. He comes in, and the tech bros know who he is because he's an actor, and he kind of high-fives them and is like, oh, I'm so sick of all this shit. But clearly he loves the attention. Clearly. So once they get to the island, everybody is met by Elsa. Again, best character in the movie. She's Chef Slowik's maitre d', and she's in charge of taking care of anything the guests will need. She greets each one of them by name, but when she gets to Margot, she uses the wrong name. And Margot's like, no, my name's Margot. And they're like, well, what happened to this bitch who's on our list? And Tyler's like, oh, yeah, I broke up. We broke up, so this... And so you're like, so it is a brand new relationship.
She was a last-minute replacement for who he
was supposed to go with. So Elsa doesn't seem happy, but she takes down Margot's name.
Right.
And then she takes them around on a tour of the island and basically is telling them, hey, everything made here, we get here. Like, everything's the freshest ingredients. She takes them to the smokehouse, and she's like, this is where we age the beef for 152 days or something.
Yeah,
and they're like what happens if it's 153? Will all hell break loose? And she goes into this like long speech about how they'll get food poisoning and their insides will get all twisted and rotted and stuff. And she's like, so yes, all hell would break loose.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that 150 days.
Right, whatever. So they pass by a house, and Tyler wants to see it, and Elsa's like, no, that's where Chef lives. Even we don't go in there. Like, fuck you. Absolutely not. And they show him a boat. They're walking by the thing, and they're showing a boat, and they're catching the fish that you're gonna eat tonight or whatever.
Yeah.
So Elsa then takes them to the barracks where all the staff live. And she's like, yeah, we all live here. We work, 12-hour days. So it just makes more sense for us all to live here. We're a family. All that kind of cult stuff.
Yeah.
It sounded a little cultish.
I thought that was a little odd.
It was a little cultish.
Yeah, I agree. They get a little odd at that point.
So the group's finally led into the restaurant. It's got this like door that's like this wall that like opens, and then you walk in, and then they slide the door closed and lock it.
It looks like a secret passage,
right?
That you would see in a mansion.
So the Liebrants were already there because they'd been to the island a few times. That's Richard and Anne, the older couple. They'd already been a few times, so like, we don't need the tour, we're just gonna go straight to the restaurant. So they're already seated when everybody else walks in, and Richard sees Margot, and he's like, oh shit, so it's like, oh, so he knows her too, like, something's going on here.
Yeah.
And he asked to switch seats with his wife so that he doesn't have to face Margot.
Face her, yeah.
So, Tyler wants to see the kitchen, so he grabs Margot and drags her over so they can talk to one of the sous chefs who's making like little gels. Like, I don't know. Tyler asks if they made it with a Paco jet and brags about all his foodie knowledge, and he has the same Paco jet at home or whatever. The sous chef is unimpressed. He does know Tyler by name, and tells him basically, hey, we're working, go take a seat. And Tyler comes back and he's like, wow, they knew all our names. And Margot's like, yeah, but I noticed you didn't ask his name. I'm like, point, girl. Like,
yeah. No, he didn't care about that.
He didn't care about his name.
Sure didn't.
And then there's, in addition to all the people we'd already met, there's one lone diner, is an old woman who the staff just continue to feed wine to. Like, we don't know who she is yet, but they just constantly filling her glass. So each course is punctuated by, they have like a little title card up in the front that's like first course, and then it tells you what it is. Kind of like cooking shows when they're like, here's what you're eating. Which I thought was kind of cute, clever.
Well, yeah, it's like, as much as the food they're serving, in my opinion, looked gross and nothing that I would eat, but it had the same fascination that a cooking show would.
Right.
You know, where they do with the presentation or the art of it.
Right.
You know,
You're like,
the
that's
passion.
pretty. I wouldn't eat it, but it's
Yeah,
pretty.
exactly. So I liked the way that they did that.
Yep.
Where is this meal, almost like it was a show.
Exactly. So first course is called The Island. Chef Slowick comes out. It's like every time he comes out, he claps and like scares everybody. And he makes a speech basically introducing him and the menu for the night, and telling everyone that it's about a theme, but the theme won't become apparent until the final dish is served at the end of the night. Here is where he insists that no one takes pictures and that they don't eat. They savor, they taste, they blah, 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 pretentious bullshit. So the first course is a rock with, I think, like scallops and island plants, plant life and stuff on it. It's literally a rock on a plate, and then they put like little scallops and then like little pieces of seaweed or something. I don't know. Margot is with me. She thinks it's ridiculous because I'm like, who's gonna eat that? Like, what is this? Margot thinks it's ridiculous, but Tyler and Lillian both try to analyze the dish. So Tyler basically like cries over the beauty of the dish, and Margot's like, "Are you crying?" He's like, "It's so pretty." Lillian concludes that they're eating the sea itself. And Ted, of course, agrees with her immediately. He's like, I was thinking the same thing. Sure you were, dude. Sure you were. So Tyler excitedly points out to Margot that these are the same scallops they had just seen being brought in from the boat that when they were doing their tour or whatever. And that draws Chef's attention to him, and Tyler kind of gets a little embarrassed, and he's like, oh shit, he doesn't like me. My favorite person in the world doesn't like me, and he starts freaking out. And Margot's like, who cares? Like, you're the customer, he's the chef, like, who the fuck cares?
Right, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, because that's what normal people think, right? I don't care if the guy makes it, yeah.
Right. Who cares if he likes you? He's just supposed to give you food, like, that's it. So then we get to the second course, which is my favorite, the breadless bread course. So Chef comes out and makes a big speech about bread and how it's for everyone, and even poor people have it because it's just flour and water. And then he tells them that they aren't getting any bread because they don't deserve it, basically. And he serves them just the spreads that would like go on the bread or whatever. Right. Again, Tyler and Lillian are like trying to explain this away as some kind of like brilliant genius move. But Lillian complains that the emulsion of one of the spreads is broken. So she's sitting here like blah, 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 this and this and this. Oh, but the emulsion's broken. Ugh. So Ted immediately agrees again. He's like, yes, it's perfect except for the broken emulsion. Blah, 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 blah. So a few moments later, one of the sous chefs or one of the waiters brings out a bowl of that exact same emulsion, and they're like, more broken emulsion for you, ma'am. Like, chef hears everything. So yeah, they place it in front of Lillian and say, courtesy of Chef Slowick, to kind of embarrass her.
Right.
So the tech bros, though, they aren't having it because I guess Hawthorne is like known for their bread, and they're like, we want some fucking bread. Like, give us our bread. And Elsa's like, no. She's just like, no.
Right, I do like her just, she's just blunt about it. No.
And so when she says no, they tell her, they're like, we work with Doug Varick, who owns this island and invested in this restaurant, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, no, you work for Dave. And then refuses to give them the bread. And then she leans down and whispers to one of them, you will eat less than you desire and more than you deserve. I'm like, girl.
Yeah.
Like, way to slit throats with words, man.
Right, for sure.
I love her.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So Margot, of course, thinks this is even more ridiculous than the first course. But Tyler's excited and sneaks another picture because he had taken a picture of the island, the rock. So he takes another picture of this. And then she's like, well, I'm not eating just spreads and gels. Like,
Right.
So he's like, well, I'll eat it. And he reaches over to grab her plate and knocks over a wine glass. Breaks a wine glass. And so he's, again, super embarrassed because Chef's attention is on him and it's not for a good thing.
No, he's mortified.
Yeah. So Chef comes over to their table and asks Margot why she isn't eating, and she sarcastically says she doesn't want to get full. He insists she eats, and then she's like, but you told us not to eat.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah.
And he's like, you know what I meant.
Yeah, tell me to savor.
So she's like, yeah, thanks. I'll eat when I want to eat what I want to eat. But thanks. Like,
Yeah.
you can go now. Like, she's
Thanks
a
for
normal restaurant person. Like,
Yeah.
she's like, no, I'm here for food. If you're not going to give me food, then I'm not
Right.
happy. Like,
Yeah, she's like, I don't care what the chef thinks. Like, fuck him.
So obviously no one else talks to Chef this way. So he kind of just, like, smiles at her and walks away, like, back to the
Yeah.
kitchen. So third course, he comes out. Third course is titled Memory, but it's also Taco Tuesday. It's like, oh. So Chef introduces the lone diner finally as his mother. And talks about how she used to be drunk when he'd come home from school, and his father was even more drunk than she was, and that his parents fought, and his father, like, wrapped a telephone cord or something around her neck, and Chef had to, like, stab him in the leg to get his dad to let her go. He says that he never spoke to his dad again, and that he wishes he had stabbed him in the throat instead of the leg. And then he's like, oh yeah, by the way, tacos are awesome. It's Taco Tuesday, y'all. And everyone's like, okay, dude. Like, it went from this whole, like, speech about how horrible his childhood was to, like, tacos are awesome. I'm like, well, yeah, tacos are awesome. Like, let's get Taco Tuesday going.
Right. If I was there, I'd be like, finally.
So what everyone is served is actually, like, chicken thighs with little scissors sticking out of them. And then they've got coiled phone cords on the plate as, like, decoration.
Yeah.
And then everyone has a personal, like, thing of tortillas. And so all of the tortillas, it turns out, have pictures on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very personalized.
They're personalized
pictures.
pictures. So George's tortillas have images of that really bad movie that he did. Like, he's like, I can't escape it. Anne and Richard's tortillas have pictures of them, and all the times they'd been to the restaurant before, but one of the pictures is Richard and another woman, and Richard tries to tell Anne that it was photoshopped. Yeah, this tortilla has been photoshopped.
Well, tortilla shopped.
So Lillian's tortillas, they have pictures of all the restaurants she gave poor reviews to, thus causing them to shut down. So yeah. And we've seen that Lillian kind of talks out of her ass. So the food she got at those restaurants could have been good.
Yeah.
And she just, for whatever reason, was like, no, fuck this restaurant, and killed them.
Right, yeah. She's definitely one that holds power and wields it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Tech Bros, Bryce, Dave, and Soren, their tortillas have pictures of documents on them proving that they're embezzling or doing fraud or something. Like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but they get super upset, and they ask Elsa what the pictures were, and she replies, they're tortillas. And they're like, well, no fuck, but
Right,
like,
what's
what?
on the
She's like,
tortilla?
tortillas deliciosas. And I'm like, yes, girl. But when they ask how the restaurant got the documents, she replies that Chef never reveals his recipes. And they're like, we're going to shut this place down by morning. And Elsa is like, that's not necessary. And we're like, foreshadowing. What are we foreshadowing here?
Yeah. Well, I think we all know.
Well, we knew these people were going to be killed, but like what the overall plan was?
Yeah,
like,
no, yeah.
So Tyler's tortillas have him using his phone to take pictures of the first two courses.
Yeah.
So they made these tortillas real fast.
Yep.
He's super worried that Chef hates him now too because of it.
Because he knew he was not supposed to do that, and but.
Yeah, he wants to go apologize, but Margot thinks Chef should apologize to him because again, he's the customer, and Chef's job is to serve the customer.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get her reasoning.
So she's like, you know what? We're gonna send it back, and she turns around to send the meal back, and Tyler gets really mad and like snaps at her. and is like, basically, bitch, shut up. I'm paying for the meal, so you're going to sit here and enjoy it. And I'm like, oh, there's another red flag. This dude is all just red flags.
Yep.
So he tells her to eat and just be grateful. So she gets offended and she gets up to walk away. And Elsa's like, can we help you with something? And she's like, where's the bathroom? And so she goes to the bathroom to try and sneak a cigarette. And she sees a staff member walking into the woods carrying a pair of wings. And I think that's in the trailer where she sees someone walking off into the woods with a pair of wings. So Chef comes in and asks what she's doing there, and she's like, it's the bathroom. Like, it should be obvious what I'm doing here.
He walks in on her, doesn't he? Like, not
she
on the toilet
she wasn't
or
on the toilet.
anything,
She was trying to sneak a cigarette.
Yeah,
but
it's
still,
a public
he just
restroom.
walked right in.
Right.
So she's like, it's ladies' room, that's why I'm in here. He's like, no, I mean the restaurant. Like, you're not supposed to be here. And now I have to figure out where you fit. And he's all, and he's like, are you one of the customers or are you one of the staff? And she's like, what? And so he just leaves. And she's like, what the fuck? So she goes back to her table and we get to the fourth course. The Mess, it's called. This might be my favorite course. It's so weird. So the staff lay out this white tarp and start decorating it with garnish, like plants and rosemary and leaves and all kinds of stuff. And Chef starts to explain the dish, but one of the tech bros interrupts to ask what the hell's going on, and Chef nods to Elsa, who just punches the dude in the face.
Wow.
Like, questions not accepted at this point. It's not question time. So everyone's shocked, but Chef goes on and introduces sous chef Jeremy, who created the next course, then goes on and on about how working here was Jeremy's dream, but he's not as good as Chef, and he never will be. And that he gave up his entire life to work here at Hawthorne. But even when everything goes right, the food is good and customers are happy, chefs are left with the mess of their life. No friends, no family, poor health, etc. All in the name of serving people you don't even know and the pressure of being perfect. So Chef asks Jeremy if it was all worth it. And he's like, no, it wasn't. So Chef then introduces a course as Sous Chef Jeremy's Mess. Jeremy then pulls out a gun and shoots himself in front of everybody. Like, yep, that's a mess.
Yep. And this is when we kind of start to see where it's going.
Right. Like, okay, I like this.
Yeah, this is when everyone starts to panic a little bit.
Yeah, everyone freaks out, and they're trying to escape, and Richard insists to Anne that they're leaving, but Elsa said there were no boats. And Anne says that maybe they should just sit down, but Richard tells her he'll handle this. And Elsa's like, oh yeah? With which hand? And he's like, what? She's like, well, which hand are you going to use to handle it? And he won't answer, so she picks. And she's like, all right, left ring finger. And they hold him down and cut off his ring finger. And his, like, wedding ring rolls off. Right. And someone picks it up and hands it to Anne. And she's sitting there, like, with her husband bleeding. Like, here's his ring. She's like, thank you. Like, she's so polite. Right. I like Anne. But Judith Light's awesome. So Lillian is trying to convince herself and everyone else that this was performance art for her benefit because she was personally invited to be there that evening by Chef. So she's like, he's doing this all, it's entertainment, it's, dining theater or whatever. She's like, this is not really happening.
If it was actually dining theater and it was like this, I might go.
Right.
I'd be like, all right, I want to see where this goes.
Right, those murder dinners or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, so Elsa tells Margot that Chef wants to see her in the kitchen, and Tyler asks if he can come too, and Elsa's like, no. He didn't ask for you, bitch.
Right.
So in the kitchen, Chef tells Margot that she's ruining his menu and asks why she's there. He can tell that she's not like the other customers and tells her to decide if she wants to be out there with them in the kitchen or out there with them in the restaurant or in there with him and the staff in the kitchen. And she's like, okay, well, if I choose you, do I get to live? And she's like, no, everyone dies tonight. And that's when we're like, wait, everyone? Right, like, you're going to kill yourself too? Like, what the fuck? So he sets a kitchen timer to 15 minutes and tells her she has 15 minutes to decide which side she's on. All right, so back at her table, Tyler is jealous because he thinks that she got to go to the kitchen and taste something that he didn't. So he's like, what did he give you? What did you eat? And I'm like, Tyler, dude, you are such a serial killer. Like,
I know. He's such an idiot.
What the fuck is wrong with you? So Chef comes out and asks if anyone has any questions about him, the restaurant, or why they were all going to die. And Tyler asks some stupid question about something he tasted in the last menu. He's like, was that star anise I tasted or whatever? And Chef is like, yes, it was. Like, he clearly is unimpressed with this question.
Like, that's not the point.
Right. So George more sensibly asks why this is all happening, and Chef replies that they were all horrible people, or at least complacent bystanders to horrible acts. Chef points out that Lillian's reviews have shut down so many restaurants and damaged so many chefs' livelihoods. And as he's telling her this, another container of the broken emulsions brought out and placed in front of her to emphasize basically the pettiness of her reviews. So Lillian asks Chef why he wants to die, and he tells her that he thought he was an artist and craved perfection, but wound up just trying to please people who can never actually be pleased. He points out that Richard and Anne have been to the restaurant many times, but when he goes up to Richard, he's like, name one dish you had the last time you were here. Richard just can't. Like, he's like, I don't know. And seeing that he does this big presentation of each meal and all that, and at the end they get gift bags with what the menu was in them, like, you assume that's how each dinner service is there, minus the death.
Right.
So, dude, you can't remember one dish after it's been presented to you this way? Like, I get why he'd be pissed. Like, Anne tries to help Richard, and she's whispering, she's like, cod, try cod. Maybe it was cod. And this is where Chef unleashes his full Chef Ramsay. He's like, it wasn't cod, you donkey. It was halibut. I was like, he said donkey.
I know, the fact that he said donkey has to be a tribute.
Unless all chefs just call people donkeys.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I was a line cook, so I didn't make it to chef. I don't know.
It's probably a British thing.
Maybe I don't know. He points out that basically Richard and Anne come to the restaurant not because they actually enjoy themselves, but because they're rich and feel like they're entitled to come there. So the tech bros point out that it wasn't Chef Slowick's restaurant, that it was their boss, Doug Barrick, who's the owner. And Chef's like, yeah, well, he was the owner. And then, like, basically points everyone's direction out the window where you see Doug hanging there over the water with the wings that Margot had seen earlier. And Chef gives the signal, and they slowly lower him into the water where he drowns, I'm assuming.
Or a shark got him. We don't know.
Right, who knows? So, bye, Doug.
Like you said, everybody dies tonight.
Everybody dies tonight. Evil dies tonight. No, wrong movie. Sorry.
Which, by the way, I know you laughed at it too, but that was hilarious when they said, what did they say, Christmas dies tonight or something?
In Violent Night.
Something. I was just like, oh my God. That has to be
every horror movie's going to reference that now.
Amazing.
So Margot's timer goes off, and Chef brings her back to his office to see if she's made her decision. She tells him he's right. She's not like the other rich customers. She's an escort. And Tyler hired her to come here tonight. So that explains A, why they don't know anything about each other, and B, why she would listen to him when he's like, don't smoke. Because I'm sorry, if we were, I'm a smoker, he's not. If we were somewhere and he's like, don't smoke, you'll ruin your palate, I'd be like, fuck you, and I'll light too. Like, don't tell me what to do. Yeah. Like, I'll smoke one out of each hand.
Yeah, so basically it sounds like what happened was he broke up with his original date.
She broke up with him.
Or something. Yeah, probably. More likely. And so he had an extra ticket, and you can't go alone.
Yep.
You know,
which he explains later, because Chef asked him, like, why did you... We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole lot more to Tyler. But then she also confesses that she knows Richard because he was one of her clients. But here's where it gets really creepy with Richard, because earlier, Anne had noticed Margot, because, you know, he asked him to switch. And so Anne looks at Margot earlier, and she's like, doesn't that girl look like our daughter? And he's like, no. And I'm like, ew, because I kind of saw where that was going.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's gross, y'all. Like, she tells Chef that Richard would have her act like his daughter and say things as his daughter while he would jerk off to her. Ew.
Well, I mean... They're pulling inspiration from other famous rich people who have made comments about their daughter.
I said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
Should not be a attracted to your daughter, guys. Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying.
So, Chef obviously thinks she should join the staff because she's one of them and obviously not one of these rich assholes. Right. She returns to her table, though. Fifth course, everyone's brought outside. And Chef Slowick introduces another sous chef. This one's named Catherine. And she designed this whole next dish. Now, Catherine tells everyone about how Chef Slowick tried to sleep with her. And she said no, and he tried again and again, and she kept saying no. And so rather than fire her, he didn't fire her, but he kept her in the kitchen, didn't make eye contact with her, didn't talk to her for 8 months, and promoted male chefs above her, even though she was better. And we're all like, oh shit, she's just laying everything bare. She tells them that being a woman chef means being groped, leered at, and humiliated, all while being paid less. So her course is all about true humiliation. So Chef turns to her and she grabs a knife and stabs him in the leg. And she looks very happy doing it. And I'm like, well, if this is the guy that's sexually harassing you and holding you back in your career, yeah, I'd want to stab him too.
Right.
Then they hug because, you know, I guess they've come... Yeah, I don't know.
Fine.
So they hug, and then the male customers are told that they'll be given...
We now offer you a 45-second head start. Okay, 45 seconds starts now.
Right. He just goes. So they're like, okay, everyone's got 45 seconds. So they go, and at 45 seconds, the male sous chefs and the male servers go after the male customers. So Catherine takes all the ladies back inside. She sits down at the table with them. And the ladies are kind of all just, it's that dread talk where you're kind of sharing stuff because you don't know what else to do. Like, you're so scared and whatever. And Margot winds up confessing that her name is Erin. Her real name is Erin. Because she's like, well, at this point, it doesn't matter. So they actually, like I said, they actually have a nice kind of girl conversation. And then they kind of go to Catherine and they're like, hey, maybe you could talk to Chef and like make it so we don't die tonight. Like, how about that, girlfriend? And Catherine's like, oh, but no, you see, everybody dying, that was my idea. Like, everybody dying was my idea, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm like, Catherine, you go, girl. Girl power, I guess. Well, like, I don't know.
There's a theme. There's a theme. You can't break the theme.
Right. She basically says the menu doesn't make sense unless everyone dies. And so she's just as crazy as Chef. So the men are, of course, all caught, some more quickly than others. And they're all brought back to the restaurant.
Yeah, because there's no way off.
There's no boats. Although one of them did find like a little rowboat, and he was just about to get in the rowboat and sail off, and they caught him and dragged him back. So one of the tech bros, they're all back at their tables, and they come out and bring a cake and put it in front of one of the tech bros, and he's like,
You told him it was my birthday?
Seemed funny about 3 hours ago.
I like how they're still doing it though. Like, that makes me laugh. You know?
So yeah, he like blows out the candles.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's also in the trailer.
It might be.
So Chef declares that the menu can't continue as planned until they address something important. And he goes over to talk to Tyler, revealing that he and Tyler had been communicating through like emails for months before this. And Tyler was fully aware of what the plan was for that evening. But he had made his reservations with someone else, so Chef's like, why did you bring her? Knowing
that she was
going to die.
Yeah.
And Tyler says he hired her because he simply, just because he knew Hawthorne wouldn't seat single diners. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, okay, so he is a psychopath. Got it.
Oh, yeah. Well,
got it.
And to him, he probably figured, well, she's a call girl. What does it matter?
What does it matter? So she's obviously and understandably upset and like reaches over to slap the shit out of him. And Chef tells Tyler that since he claims to be such a foodie and he knows so much about food and he says that he's such a good chef at home and he's got all these things at home to help him make food, he's like, all right, you're a member of our staff now. And they give him a chef jacket, and Chef even picks up a marker and writes Tyler's name on it so it's personalized. And Tyler's like about to cry. He's so happy. He's so happy. And then Chef's like, all right, go cook for us. And Tyler's like, wait, what? And so they take him to the kitchen, and it's very clear that Tyler does not know what the fuck he's doing. He asks for, like, shallots or something, and they're like, get him shallots! And he's like, we're like, what else do you need? And he's like, butter? And they're like, butter for him, get him butter, and whatever.
It'd be basically if he took me in the kitchen. I'd be like, well, here's what I've seen. Get some risotto out here.
Although on Hell's Kitchen, they mess up the risotto a lot, so I don't know.
I would just pick out some I've seen on there, yeah.
So at the end of this, he's got this lamb dish that, again, we watch Hell's Kitchen, so I saw this lamb and I was like, that's not done.
Yeah.
That chef's gonna throw that back. So it's like obviously a disgusting dish, and chef tastes it and he's like, this is the worst thing ever. You're a horrible person. You should kill yourself. And then whispers something into his ear, and we see Tyler get all dejected and sad, and he takes the chef coat off and throws it, and then he walks away as he's taking off his tie, and he just kind of walks to the back, and you're like, okay, well, he's gonna go fuck off, whatever.
Right. Clean the toilets or something.
So chef tells everyone else that there's one dish left before dessert. But that Elsa forgot to get a barrel of something from the smokehouse. Elsa looks insulted, and chef asks Margot to go get the barrel to prove that she's one of the staff and not one of the customers. On her way out to go get this barrel, because they gave her the keys to the smokehouse or whatever, she sees Tyler has hung himself in chef's office.
And rightfully so.
Right, good riddance.
Right. Like, I don't think the world was at any loss.
No.
Like,
No.
I know everybody brings something to the table. If this guy is a real person, I'm not sure that he does.
Right. So Margot goes and she gets the barrel or whatever, and she sees a knife, and she's like, oh shit, and grabs the knife, because smart final girl, you know? And then she sees through the window chef's cottage, and she's like, you know what? I'm gonna go check that out. Mm-hmm. Well, Elsa kind of stops her, and she's like, you're chef's new favorite, blah. Like, she's obviously jealous that she thinks chef is replacing her with Margot. So they start having a big old cat fight, and Margot winds up stabbing Elsa, and I'm like, no, because I liked Elsa. Like,
right,
no.
not Elsa.
Not Elsa. So as she's dying, Elsa tells Margot, she's like, I didn't forget shit. Chef never asked me to go get it. So, yeah.
Setting her up or something.
Right. To probably take Elsa's place. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah,
like,
I have a feeling that is what he was thinking, I guess.
So Margot takes a key from around Elsa's neck, and she goes into this secret room that was in Chef's cottage, and she finds like all of his mementos and stuff from his career, like old photos and rewards and stuff. And she finds this one photo that's black and white, and it's a young Ralph Fiennes, like it is. Mm-hmm. And it's him flipping a burger or whatever, and it's from his first restaurant or something. And he looks so happy in it and all that. And then she turns and she sees a radio. And she's like, oh shit. So she goes and goes to call the Coast Guard. So that's where we leave her for a minute.
Was that the same room that they saw earlier when they brought him in? There was some door.
Yeah, and they're like, no one goes in there.
Yeah, that's the same one, right?
I assume so. I don't know.
It looked like it was.
It was the same, yeah, I don't know.
I think it was.
So back at the restaurant, George asks why he was chosen to be there, because he's like, I'm not that bad a guy, dude. Like, and Chef tells him that on his one day off in months, like it had been 7 months or some shit, and he finally had one day off, and he sat down to enjoy a movie, and he turned on whatever this old shitty movie is that George did, and he's like, you ruined my one day off. I hate that movie.
That's awesome.
And that's why he wanted to kill him. I mean, I get it. When I was working 3 jobs and I would have actually like a day off, I would murder anyone who bothered me on that day, like who made that day bad. Like,
well, you know, his point is that he thought he would go to an escape and watch this movie and relax, laugh,
and the movie
probably,
was bad.
and it was terrible.
So bad.
We've all been a little disappointed with something.
Been there, yeah. Not so much that I feel like I need to murder everyone involved, but like, okay.
Well,
although the Bye Bye Man or whatever that movie was.
Well, oh yeah, no, not the Bye Bye Man.
No,
what was it?
I don't remember. I hate it.
Remember.
I hate that movie so much. So Felicity Felicity asks why she was there, and Chef asks, well, where did you go to college? She's like, Brown. He's like, do you have student loans? She's like, no. He's like, there you go.
There you go. Right.
You're rich and you're an asshole. That's why you're here. Like, and you work for this asshole who's also rich.
Like
that's
I said,
why you're here.
it's a very eat the rich movie.
Right,
you know?
very much so. Like, that's all. Like, you went to Brown and you didn't have student loans. Fuck you.
Yeah. Qualified enough for me.
Right. So Margot shows up and she, rolls the barrel in. And Chef sits down to talk with her, telling her that, yes, he's a monster, but everything he did tonight was pure. And then he starts, quoting MLK Jr. about how freedom is never willingly given to the oppressor, that it must be demanded of the oppressed. He tells her that he has Chef's hands, and he holds it over the fire and doesn't get burned, and, I get it. I remember by the time I was done as a line cut, I only did it for a year, but by the time I was done with it, my fingers were so cut, I could touch anything and not get burned.
You see? Now that's a sewing finger, honey.
As he's talking, this boat shows up, and it's a Coast Guard boat, and everyone's like, oh, shit! And Chef's like, fuck you, Margot.
Right.
Because he knows she did it.
Oh, yeah.
So the staff are moving quickly to try and clean up everyone, because one dude got punched in the face, dude's missing a finger, so they're trying to clean up everyone who's wounded and stuff. And Chef is basically like, you all are gonna stay quiet, or you're gonna have an innocent man's blood on your hands, because we will kill him. So the Coast Guard comes in and asks some questions, and then notices George and gushes, because he's a fan. He's like, man, I love your movies, blah, 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 blah. And Chef's like, well, do you want an autograph?
Right.
And George kind of glares at him. So they give George a pen and paper. He's like, because I don't have a pen. And they're like, oh, we do. So they give George a pen and paper, and George is like, yeah, hi, awesome. And Coast Guard's like, cool. And he turns around to leave, and he opens it, and it says, help us. And so the Coast Guard turns around and pulls his gun, and everyone's like, help us, please, God, help us, help us, help us. So he takes the gun, and he points it at the candle that Chef had just snuffed out with his hand, and pulls the trigger, and it's a lighter. It lit the candle. The Coast Guard is one of the sous chefs, guys.
Yeah, they got me good on that one. I didn't see that one
I thought they were just going to kill the Coast Guard.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming at all, that he'd be bought and sold too.
Uh-huh. Well, he's one of, the way I understand it is he's one of the sous chefs, because he takes it off and he goes in the kitchen. He takes off the Coast Guard thing and goes in the kitchen. So he's one of the sous chefs. This was all just
posing it.
Yeah. So whatever radio connection she had probably connected to one that they had in the kitchen, and so one of the staff heard her calling out, and they're like, haha, this is going to be funny.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's probably what happened.
So Chef is disappointed in Margot, and tells her that her move to call the Coast Guard shows that she's like the others. She's an eater and a taker. And that she deserves to sit out there with the rest. So go sit at your table. So Chef comes out, and he's preparing to serve the final course. And Margot declares that she doesn't like Chef's food, and she wants to send it back. And Chef is astonished, and he's like, wait, what? Why? And she tells him basically it's pretentious and stupid, and that he's taken the joy out of eating, and that his food wasn't made with the most important ingredient, love. She also tells him that the hot dishes were cold, there was no personality, only concepts, and that as a chef, his one purpose is to serve food people will like. Then she says that worst of all, she's still hungry. So he takes it all in and kind of regards her, and he's like, so what are you hungry for? And remembering the photo of him from his cottage where he looks so happy at his first job, she's like, I want a cheeseburger. And she's like, and I don't want any of this deconstructed bullshit cheeseburger. She's like, I want a cheeseburger.
Yeah, old-fashioned cheeseburger bread.
Big old juicy one. He says he can do that, but she's like, I don't know, after all these years, I don't think you can do that. And he's like, oh, I can, and I'll make the best cheeseburger you ever eaten. And she's like, well, how much will it cost me? And he's like, $9.95.
I know that.
And she's like, does that come with fries?
Right.
And he asks one of the sous chef, he goes, is the fryer still on? And they're like, yes, chef. And he's like, fries it is. So he goes back there, and he's smiling the whole time he's making this cheeseburger. It's clear that he's happy, and he's making it with love, and he's taking his time, and putting it all together.
His purpose is to also prove her wrong.
Yeah.
That I will make the most delicious cheeseburger. I can do whatever you want.
Yep. That I can be the chef that gives people what they want. Yeah. So he finishes making the burger and the fries, and he brought out to her, and she takes a bite, and she's like, this is the best burger I've ever had. She goes, but you know what? I think my eyes were bigger than my stomach. Is there any way that I can take this to go? And he looks at her for a minute, realizing what she's doing, and he's like, yes. So they take the food back, they wrap it, they give it to her. They give her a gift bag for the evening.
Yeah.
And she puts a $10 bill down on the table. And she's like, I'm going to leave now. And she grabs her food in her bag and she turns to leave. And she turns back around and you see Anne kind of gesture for her to go and save herself.
Right. Just, right.
And so Margot's like, cool, turns around, walks out. They open the door for her. She walks out. They close the door and she just walks off into the night. So back inside, everyone else is given their bill for the evening. And so they're all pulling out their credit cards.
Like, why do you pay for this?
They're all pulling out their credit card, signing their receipts.
I'd be like, wait, if we're all going to die anyways.
It was so funny, you guys.
Yeah, it was funny.
So chef tells him that the final dish is s'mores. The sous chef spread chocolate and like gasoline, I guess, all over the floor. Along with like piles of graham cracker dust or whatever. And then they make them all wear like marshmallow hats.
It's my favorite part. I'm like, what?
And then the restaurant is set on fire, and there's a final title card saying "Final Dessert Course: S'mores,
right.
Marshmallow, Chocolate, Graham Cracker, Customers, Staff, Restaurant." That's the ingredients.
I mean, I haven't tried those s'mores before.
I mean, I always said I was interested to see what people taste like. Like, I don't know. Could taste like chicken. I don't know. So basically everyone burns to death. They all just sit there with their little marshmallow hats and burn to death. So we end with Margot. She got onto the fake Coast Guard boat. And she's sitting there watching the restaurant burns, and she pulls out her burger and eats it, and she pulls out, from the little gift bag they'd given her, a copy of the menu from that evening. She used that to wipe her mouth, and that's the end.
Yeah.
The end!
Which I think that says everything about how Margot felt about the whole thing.
Right.
And ultimately, I think she outsmarted him by the whole burger thing. You know, by challenging him.
I think it was that they came to an understanding. I think he fully saw what she was doing, but it kind of brought him back to that happier time where he loved making food, you know?
Yeah.
And so ultimately I think that's why he let her leave, is because she gave him, before his death, that one little moment
of
back.
Joy. Yeah, that makes sense. And plus, he knew she didn't belong there.
No.
So,
he said the whole movie was him telling her she didn't belong there.
Yeah. So, see, and that's the thing. That's why you need a character like that. That's why that twist is important. Because if she wasn't, if it was his original date, the movie would have played out the same, except for everybody would have just died. And it just would have been, that's it. So, yeah. I like this movie a lot.
So much.
I had so much fun watching this movie.
I was laughing so much. I was like, I don't know if this movie is just really funny or I'm really demented.
Right. But, yeah, I highly recommend it. It is a dark comedy. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything to worry about being offended or insulted by or whatever. I say just go on it with just, you know, especially if you like Hell's Kitchen, you're gonna, you know, because we've always watched Hell's Kitchen, and when they kick somebody off and they act like it's the end of their life, they're always like, this is the end, you're dead. You don't say you're dead, but they're like, this is the end for you.
Dude, just go home and get another job.
And it always makes me feel like, oh, they're going to go out and execute them, you know? Right. So, like, I think that this movie is really well done. I think it's very timely. Mm-hmm. I think it's perfect for the world we live in right now.
And Ralph Fiennes is the perfect person to play Chef Slowick.
Yeah.
Like, he did so good.
I don't know. Yeah, honestly, I'm sure there's others, but if I was casting, like, he would be the first one I'd think of. Someone, because I'd be like, okay, who's the Gordon Ramsay type?
Exactly.
Can pull that off. You know,
and still be somewhat charming.
Exactly. Yeah. He was like, you wanted to like him, even though you knew he was a total.
You're like, I kind of get what you're doing here, dude.
And you know what? And you know what? Nicholas Hoult, you played a great douchebag that we all hated.
Right. I hated
and
that
just
guy.
wanted to die. Yep. You know, like, on that note, thank you guys for watching. Please make sure you hit the bell, like, and subscribe, so you make sure you get all notifications of all our future movies, reviews, or news,
or whatever we put on here.
Alright guys, even though I didn't say a whole lot in this review, I was still very entertained, as I hope you were as well, so I'm going to shut up now.
Alright, and I'm going to go talk over here.
Okay, bye.